What does it really take for just one person to stand up against the destruction of, well, an entire world? We're about to find out. This is the incredible story of Chico Mendes, a man who became the voice for the Amazon.
Okay, let's set the scene. I want you to picture this. It's December 22nd, 1988. We're in a place called Zapari, Brazil, a small town deep, deep in the Amazon rainforest.
And then, out of nowhere, a shotgun blast shatters the calm. A man is killed right on his own doorstep. But look, this was no random act of violence. This was an execution. And that's the big question, right? Who was this man, and why was he so dangerous that someone wanted him dead?
So, that man, that was Chico Mendes, and he was probably not who you're picturing. He wasn't some big-shot politician or a military general. No, he was a rubber tapper. They call them seringalleros, but he was so much more. He was a union organizer, an activist, a man who put his entire life on the line for one massive, single cause: to save the Amazon.
Now, to really get what he was fighting for, you have to understand his world. See, for generations, rubber tappers like him had lived with the Amazon. They tap latex from the trees, a process that doesn't hurt the forest at all. In fact, it needs the forest to be alive and healthy. But then, starting around the 1970s, everything changed. Their entire world, their way of life, came under attack.
And this is really the heart of the conflict. It was a clash of two completely opposite worlds. On one side, you've got the rubber tappers, the seringalleros whose lives and livelihoods depended on keeping the forest standing. And on the other side, powerful cattle ranchers, who, by the way, were often getting government money to do this. Their business model was simple: clear the land, tear it all down. It was a total zero-sum game. One side's survival meant the other's destruction.
So what do you do when your entire world is about to be bulldozed into oblivion? Well, Chico Mendes knew they couldn't just stand by. They had to fight back. But how? He came up with a strategy that was honestly both radical and beautifully simple. It was all about nonviolent, direct confrontation.
He gave it a name, the Impalati. It translates to the standoff. And the idea was so simple yet so incredibly brave. They were literally going to use their own bodies as human shields to protect the trees.
Just try to picture this for a second. The work crews show up with their chainsaws ready to start tearing everything down. And then, out from the trees comes the entire community. We're talking men, women, even children. And they just stand there. They form a human wall and peacefully refuse to move. It was this incredible moral and physical blockade. And you know what? A lot of the time, it actually worked. The crews would just turn around and leave.
But Chico was way more than just a protest organizer. He was a brilliant strategist. He knew these standoffs weren't enough on their own, so he started playing a bigger game. He built an alliance with indigenous peoples, the original guardians of the forest. He took the fight global, flying to the United States to tell senators, hey, the Amazon isn't just Brazil's problem, it's everyone's. And he pushed for this game-changing idea he called extractive reserves, basically creating legally protected areas where the forest could be used sustainably, not just destroyed.
And this one quote from him just sums it all up perfectly. He said, "Environmentalism without social justice is just gardening." Think about that. For Chico, saving the trees was never just about the trees. It was about the people in the forest. You can't separate the two. If your plan to save the environment ignores the people who live there and depend on it, well, you're just gardening. Real conservation, he argued, had to be about justice for people too.
And that idea, that powerful, simple idea, is exactly what made him so dangerous to the ranchers. So dangerous, they put a price on his head. And that, of course, brings us right back to where we started, that shotgun blast in 1988. They did manage to kill the man, but they had no idea they couldn't kill his movement. In fact, his death was the spark that lit the fire.
His murder caused a massive global outcry. Suddenly, the whole world was watching, and the pressure on the Brazilian government was immense. So intense, they were forced to do something that had never happened before. For the very first time, powerful, wealthy ranchers were actually arrested, put on trial, and convicted for a murder in the Amazon. That was huge.
So, what about that big idea of his, the extractive reserves? Well, check this out. Just 2 years after he was killed, the very first one was created, named in his honor. And its size is just staggering, 10,000 square kilometers. To give you some perspective, that's bigger than Jamaica. A massive chunk of the Amazon now protected, all because the world got angry about his death.
And that was just the beginning.
The timeline is incredible, really. He's murdered in 1988. By 1990, that first reserve is a reality. And after that, the idea just exploded. Today, there are dozens of these reserves, protecting millions and millions of hectares of rainforest, and the people who call it home. It's a direct line from his sacrifice to their survival.
And you can really see how his own thinking evolved in this other quote. He said, "At first I thought I was fighting to save rubber trees. Then I thought I was fighting to save the Amazon. Now I realize I am fighting for humanity." It shows this beautiful progression, right? From something very personal, his own livelihood, to something that affects every single one of us.
So, okay, why are we talking about this now? Why does the story of a rubber tapper, murdered decades ago, still matter so much today? Because the fight he was in, well, it's our fight now, and it's more urgent than it's ever been. And the blueprint he left behind, it's still one of the best we've got.
I mean, look at this framework he gave us. It's like a toolkit for change that activists still use everywhere. You've got the model for extractive reserves, you've got the absolute necessity of putting indigenous rights front and center, the idea of building big, messy alliances between different groups, connecting a local problem to a global audience, and that core idea we keep coming back to. Environmentalism and social justice are the same fight. That's his legacy.
In the end, Chico Mendes proved that a fight for a small piece of the forest could be a fight for all of us, for all of humanity. He left us the playbook, he gave us the inspiration. Which leaves us with a pretty urgent final question. Who is standing in front of the chainsaws today?